Hi, I'm Adam Ragusia, and you just caught yourself a freebie. This is a free preview of Wholesome, the new weekly podcast from myself, Adam Pranica, and Benjamin Harrison. It's available exclusively to our subscribers via Patreon. Link is in the description. $5 a month gets you a weekly episode every Wednesday, and the first 3 episodes are bingeable right now. But this one I'm giving you for free right here on my YouTube channel. Hope you enjoy it. The slaughter of a large animal is a special time, historically speaking. If you're a pre-modern person and you dispatch a goat or a sheep or a head of cattle, there are a lot of big, heavy, messy jobs that need to be done with alacrity before vital resources within the animal putrefy. You have to collect the blood, you have to peel off the hide and wash it and stretch it out to dry. You have to butcher all the meat and dry it or smoke it or hang it or cure it or chop it into little bits and stuff it into the entrails. And before you do that, you have to cut out and clean the entrails, and you have to peel apart the different layers of the intestinal lining for different purposes. Everything from making glue to making cord or musical instruments with which you could play chords. That double meaning would have worked better in text than it did in pod just then. To do all these carcass processing jobs fast enough, you would need the whole little village to come together. And people would have great motivation to come together and help you because at the end, there would be soup. Not everyone in that assembled community is of equal usefulness, however. The children are probably more trouble than they're worth. 'Twas ever thus. You got to give them something to do to keep their hands out of the guts. Not all the parts of the animal are of equal use either. Nobody eats the bladder, for example, unless you're a Scotsman. Insert joke here about Scottish people being poor and gross. It's funny because they're white, like me. From China to the Central Asian steppe to Africa and Europe and across the sea in pre-Columbian America, we have evidence of ancient people taking an animal's bladder, blowing it up like a balloon, and then throwing it or kicking it around for fun. I will bet Adam Pranica real American dollars that bladder ball started out as a thing to keep the kids busy while the grown-ups processed the rest of the carcass, and or whilst they enjoyed the ensuing feast. In medieval England, ball games resembled something like melee combat from tournaments, mock battles that could range across entire towns. To play what they literally called mob football, the Brits would blow up a bladder, and then 2 huge groups of people would get together and try to advance the ball into the other team's territory and eventually to a goal of some kind for the win. Huge groups of people. Your whole church parish would be a team, and you would try to get the ball to the neighboring parish's church, while all the people in that parish would be trying to get their ball to your church. By any means necessary. Feet, hands, sticks, clubs, deceit, guile. Mob football was apparently extremely chaotic and violent. As a wise man, Ronnie James Dio once said, "When you listen to fools, the mob rules." Mob rules football gave way to relatively more genteel, systematized football starting around the 15th or 16th centuries. In the elite English private schools that they call public schools because they were comparatively more public than the in-home tutoring or church-based education systems that came before. Little public school pricks played bladder ball too. And they were the first to refine the rules, or at least they were the first to write down any refined rules. The illiterate masses may have had elaborate rule systems of their own. We just can't know about those because they couldn't write anything down. And that is the very unjust way that elites have gotten all the credit for everything since forever. Among English public school boys, 2 distinct versions of bladder ball quickly emerged. One in which the ball was advanced primarily with the hands, and another in which the ball was advanced primarily with the feet. The former gradually evolved into a sport called rugger, now called rugby football, while the latter evolved into a sport called a soccer, now called soccer in North America and association football in the rest of the empire. The North American rugby-like game where you mostly carry the ball with your hands, call it American football, this emerged from the North American remnants of the empire, from McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Down in New England, at Harvard University, they kicked the ball with their feet on Boston Common in a game that they called Boston Rules football. In 1874, McGill and Harvard met and played a game where one half of the game they used the McGill rules, and then the other half of the game was Boston rules. Everybody apparently liked the McGill rules better, perhaps, and I am speculating here, but perhaps because when players are carrying the ball in their hands, you have more excuse to smash into their bodies to try to take the ball away or to interrupt its progress. And college boys just love smashing their bodies together. Hey, who wouldn't? Due to this collision with the McGill boys, Harvard football, despite its name, quickly became a hands-based game, and it spread through the American Ivy League system. It is ironic that modern American football is regarded as the sport of the common man, the blue-collar man, and yet it evolved at elite private colleges attended exclusively by the management class. And much like medieval tournaments of arms, football created a social problem where it resulted in totally unnecessary injuries and deaths among the society's ostensibly best and brightest, and thus kings attempted to regulate it to minimize the damage done to the boys of their barons and boyars. In 1905, President Teddy Roosevelt held a meeting with Harvard, Yale, and Princeton football club representatives where he implored them to make the game safer. And from that meeting came a rule legalizing the forward pass. It was thought that by moving the ball by throwing it, that would result in fewer collisions than moving the ball by running with it. And the forward pass eventually became one of the biggest differences between American football and rugby football. And instead of restarting play by everybody just jumping on the ball in a pile, a scrummage, as they do in rugby, American football puts the ball on an imaginary line called the line of scrimmage. The team on offense just picks it up and goes. American football is sometimes referred to confusingly as gridiron football. It's confusing because a modern football field is not a grid. It's painted with a series of parallel lines, but 100 years ago, they would paint the whole field with intersecting lines in a grid that resembled one that you would cook over, a gridiron. If only that were the most confusing thing about gridiron football. Surely one reason the sport remains largely confined in popularity to its homeland is how impenetrable its rules are. And yet, I love it. I love American football, despite the fact that I am a veteran of the Jocks versus nerd wars of the late 20th century. I grew up outside of a town literally called State College, Pennsylvania, home of the main campus of the Pennsylvania State University, a school so dedicated to gridiron football that its otherwise laudable leaders spent decades studiously ignoring and occasionally actively covering up the fact that one of its longtime football coaches was using his position to, what? Oh yeah, sexually abuse children through its charity for at-risk youth, or his charity for at-risk youth. Let's go State, I say. Back in those days, you were either a sporto or you were an anti-sporto. I had long hair and I played the guitar and I read Chomsky and I listened to Public Enemy and Bad Religion. You can guess which side I was on. When I would ride my bicycle through the streets of State College, my spider sense would tingle whenever I passed by a house with a couch on its porch. Football fans frequented porch couches and were known to hurl homophobic slurs and occasionally beer cans at passing longhairs such as myself, especially when we were on bicycles. Somehow a less manly form of transport than sitting your soft ass in an upholstered easy chair on wheels? Despite all that, I enjoyed Penn State football more than I would have admitted, even to myself, but I was definitely team nerd in the Jocks versus nerd wars, and my default position was therefore anti-football, anti-athletics. And that's a shame because I missed out on a lot of good stuff as a result. As I grew older, I learned that I like to run and jump and hit people too. And then in the early 21st century, something funny happened. Jocks versus nerds ended in a Treaty of Union. Nerd culture went mainstream. Everybody's a nerd now, including football players, most of whom grew up playing video games not limited to Madden, and watching anime and Marvel movies, and absorbing far more tolerant attitudes about sexuality and gender roles. Nerds also found a way into jockdom by proving how useful advanced statistics can be in sports and in sports betting. The union of jocks and the nerds can be seen in the persons of the Kelsey brothers, professional American football players and hosts of what is now by some measures the most popular podcast in the world, New Heights. The older brother, Jason Kelsey, is a straight-up nerd. The younger brother, Travis, is not a nerd, but he is a lover of nerds, he's an appreciator of nerds, and he is a generally kind and tolerant and enlightened soul, probably thanks to the positive influence of nerds in his life. And yes, like the jock he is, Travis Kelsey is dating the prom queen, Taylor Swift. But Swift herself represents the union of the houses of jock and nerd. She is the most popular hot girl in school, but she's also the moody poet in the corner, scribbling outsider observations in her moleskin notebook. Jocks and nerds are now one, the two halves of the broken crystal mended, the mystics and the Skeksis merged. I will admit that my own renewed interest in American football was occasioned by the union of Swift and Kelsey. My adult Swiftie spouse, Lauren, she and I just wanted to see if this young man was good enough for our girl Tay, and that sent me down a football rabbit hole, and I came out on the other side a full-on late-life National Football League fan. I am in my football era. Mine is a common story right now, and I don't care. Unlike the teenage version of myself, my adult self does not have to define himself in opposition to mainstream culture. I have no guilt anymore about being basic, and I have no guilt about loving NFL football. I mean, I have a little guilt, given what we know about football and chronic brain injury, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And by that I mean I'm sure Ben will bring that up later. But for right now, I just want to talk to my friends about why I love American football, a child's historically bladder-based game played and enjoyed by all kinds of grown-ass people. And that's kind of wholesome, isn't it?
Welcome to Wholesome, a show where we share things that we enjoy with our friends. I'm Ben Harrison.
I'm Adam Pranica.
I'm Adam Ragusia, and either of you American football fans?
Absolutely.
Thank God, I got one.
For, I think, my entire life.
Adam and I have been to an NFL game together.
Really? Which teams?
We saw the Chicago Bears play the New Orleans Saints at the Superdome in New Orleans on a birthday trip of mine. And I had a great time, even though I was profoundly high on jazz gummies.
That might have been the reason. We did that thing, it was extremely short notice, Goose, where we happened to be in a city where a football game was being played. We had no plans to go to this game. But absent anything else to do, I was like, Ben, do you want to go to the Superdome and watch a game? Like, it's 4 blocks away. We should go. And he and his group of friends were, like, mildly interested. And that was enough for me to go to a ticket-selling website.
No,
and
everybody was psyched.
I bought them on the secondary market, and I think, all had a pretty great time. It was fun.
It ruled. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any space in my life for watching sports at home, but I really like going to see it live is always fun, like up and down the skill level hierarchy. Also, like I loved going to like softball games in college and stuff, and I'm super down for that kind of hang. I just, if I'm turning on the TV, it's just never that.
Yeah, understood. I would like to try to frame this conversation, as we will try to do for most of our conversations on the Wholesome program, kind of affirmatively. I don't want to like defend football.
Yeah, and I'm also not dicking on it by saying that that's not my bag. Like I'm just saying I think what I'm trying to do is level set. Like Adam is a lifelong Green Bay Packers fan with little miniature figurines of Green Bay Packers players in his possession. And I'm very much toward the other end of the spectrum.
Well, I say one goal I would have for this is to maybe try to explain to people who are not really terribly familiar with North American football. I think it has special properties that are just inherent to the gameplay that make it really great in certain ways. And when I'm going to try to describe some of them and run them by you guys, and I don't want to say that like other games, other historically bladder-based games don't also do these things. I'm just saying they are sort of particularly strong with the force when it comes to American football. Mm-hmm. And one, well, chief among them, I think, is its, I think most of the things I like about it stem from its discontinuity. The fact that gameplay comes in these very brief bursts. You pick the ball up off the line of scrimmage. You have a few seconds to try to advance it downfield. When a guy goes down, when the ball goes down, you stop and everything resets. And this creates, people sometimes use this to make fun of football. They'll say, there's only like 15 minutes of gameplay in a 2-hour NFL game broadcast. But to me, that has a lot of advantages. One that is like purely practical is that it makes it to me almost like the perfect game to watch socially. Like everybody can be at home around the beer and the wings and having a conversation, and that conversation can go on all through the night, and everybody just shuts up when the ball comes up off the line of scrimmage for 15 seconds, and then the conversation resumes.
It kind of reminds me of like a board game in some ways, where like each down feels like the coach and whoever else they're communicating with get to like think of a new strategy each time. And I think that may be like one of the biggest stumbling blocks for me, being like a total fanboy of it, is that like so much of the strategy part of it is a little bit elusive to me. I feel like I want to like hear those conversations, hear what they're talking about.
Well, I think a big part of enjoying football is being a fan of a team. And I think absent that, you put a ceiling on how much you could truly enjoy watching the sport without that. Goose, are you primarily a collegiate football person, or are you an NFL football person with a favorite team?
I am now a full-on NFL footballman, and I'm sort of team shopping. I mean, I suppose that the house has to root for the Chiefs for the time being. Mm-hmm. We'll see where that goes. Mm-hmm. I watched college football for a long time when I was younger, and I kind of studiously eschewed NFL football. But now that I've come to it, I have been amazed by it. Like the level of, it's so elite. Like everything and everyone moves so much faster and is so much bigger and stronger, and everything is so much more intentional and precise. And it's like, it's the level of human achievement on display in modern NFL football is amazing to me.
You're absolutely right about that. I've been on the sideline for high school, college, and NFL games, and it is like the cave drawing of the evolution of human beings. Like the enormity of a person at the NFL level and the speed at which they move up close is terrifying in the best and coolest way to watch.
That's so true. I want to get back to what Ben said about how the discontinuity of play ends up creating more occasions for generalship, right? It makes the entire game much more intentional, whereas more continuous games, they have plays, in basketball and in soccer that they have rehearsed a million times. I'm sure it's not called rehearsal in sports, but sorry. Still a theater kid at heart, I guess. But they have like plays that they've rehearsed and that they can enact through nonverbal communication. Like I kick the ball to you from this particular position, and that signals that we're going to try this play to try to get the ball into the net in soccer or what have you, right? But with American football, because you're stopping and starting all the time, every single play, the coach weighs in and says, okay, now we're going to try this play that we have designed.
Right.
Every single thing is a coordinated attack. And it's also, and I guess maybe I have mixed feelings about this being essentially a pacifist, but it is an extremely warlike game. Or specifically, it's very much like siege warfare because it's so clear who's attacking and who is defending at any given time. And it's basically all about the besieging team just tries different things against that castle until they run out of chances. And for people who don't know how the game works, it proceeds in units of 10 yards, and a yard is about as big as a meter. And you have 4 chances called 4 downs to try to get the ball to the next 10-yard marker. And if you fail to do that, you have to give the ball by some means to the opposing team and let them have a try. If you get to the next 10-yard marker, then you get another set of 4 downs and you can keep trying. And that's another aspect of it that I love so much, is how it creates a system in which there's lots of, like a great piece of music, there's lots of tension and release on both the micro and macro level. There's the tension building up to the individual play that is then released when the play ends. There's the tension of that set of 4 downs, whether or not you're going to get the first down or score in that set of 4 downs. And then there's the release of either succeeding or failing. And then there's the tension of actually scoring at the end of that particular offensive drive. So it's been difficult for me to get into association football because it seems so lacking in internal tension and release to me. It's just like the odds of scoring seem kind of equal at any single moment in a game of soccer, and it just seems like chaos, occasionally punctuated by a random moment of celebration, whereas football builds.
Right. Like if you get distracted by something, stuck between your teeth and like look away from the television for a moment, you might miss the only important part of the game.
Right. Exactly.
What are your histories with playing team sports generally and football specifically? Have either of you ever played it?
I always wanted to, but I was the skinniest person in my class basically every year through high school. But
you were tall. You could have been a wide out.
You could have been a kicker, right?
My advisory teacher was our football coach, and I would always talk to him every day about football stuff and about the team and so forth. Like, he understood that I was a fan, but as someone who took both his gym class and his advisory class, I think he knew that's where it would end for me.
Damn, Tim Walz was actually kind of an asshole, it turns out.
I mean, I played baseball in middle school, and I played tennis in middle school, but my sporting kind of ended toward high school when it stopped being fun and started being ultra competitive.
Yeah.
I pivoted to band at that point.
How about you, Goose? Are you an ex-jock of any kind? I mean, you're a present-day jock. Every time I talk to you, you're in a tank top and drenched in sweat.
Well, that's the thing. I as I mentioned, I wish I could have gotten over the social hangups of the time in order to, express my, like probably most people, I'm not any kind of great athlete or talented athlete, but I do have an athletic part of me. And I think part of almost anyone getting in shape has to be like, you find the athletic, there's an athletic version of yourself.
Yeah.
Not necessarily going to be someone who goes to the Olympics, but like somebody who, a part of what you do is that you pick things up and put them down and run and jump. Right. And I was really lucky because I went to this like alternative high school, like this like punk rock high, where no one played sports. Absolutely no one played sports. But our gym teacher was this fellow named Bill Tussey, who is like this unusually empathetic and thoughtful and quiet jock. Mm-hmm. Who
Tussies are strong.
Tussey's a strong man. And Bill was rad, and he introduced me to the weight room, and I will forever be incredibly thankful to Bill Tussey for introducing me to my truest friend, the iron. But to go back to your original question, Ben, I when I was really young, before the jock and nerd teams schismed, can we use Uxbridge Shimoda drops in this program?
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to work out the licensing. It could be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
How about new?
Given that we stole all of that audio also.
Before the schism of the jocks and the nerds, out where I lived in the woods with some other boys who were my age, there was a jock family, the Raymeyers, who lived in the neighborhood. And Ron Raymeyer, who is like one of the greatest car salesmen you will ever meet in your life, like a man who was born to it. He like flattened a whole big chunk of his land into a regulation size gridiron football field. We had very, very rocky soil. And so they never really got all the rocks out, and we would all try to, every time we played, we'd like spend an hour picking up rocks before we played, but still there was always rocks and therefore grievous injuries. But, I later, and this was how I remembered it, but I figured that it was just kind of as a young man's delusion. But, later, many, many years later, I talked to Ron when I was an adult, and he said, man, you were great when you were 10. You were tough, and you would, didn't know what you were doing, but like you just threw your body into things, and I had a ton of fun. And I wish I could have. I mean, I would have been too small, too short to play football of any kind anyway. So
that's one thing that really struck me about going to that game with you, Adam Pranica, was we were like 2 or 3 rows back from the field, and you could really get a sense of how your body compared to the bodies of professional football players. And
you are 2 very tall men. Yeah.
I'm 6'4", 210. And I felt like a small boy near those football players,
Yeah. Scale is tough to read on TV, but in person, wow.
It feels like the closest thing we've got to what Roman Colosseum style entertainment must have felt like in those days. Like, to have that many people cheering in unison for one violent act, often, many times per hour, is a really unique feeling. I can't help but be caught up in it when I'm there. It's great.
Is that good? Like, it feels like society needs pressure release, like what the Romans found in the Colosseum and what we found in the Superdome that day.
Yeah, when I was younger, I would have thought that, oh, it's terrible, you're indulging bloodlust and blah, blah, blah. Now, as an adult, I've completely flipped on that, and I think it's great to give ourselves an opportunity to do something that we really do naturally, that really is baked into the DNA of people of all genders.
Because like putting it in those terms, like we need the pressure release, almost feels like condescending to us and to people that, that build their lives around that. And I think that like I also come at those things feeling like a little bit of an outsider, because I've never been like a concert goer particularly, and I've never been a like mass event of any kind person particularly. And I enjoy myself at those, but I don't like set time aside to go to them. I don't set money aside to go to them. It's always something that I am getting invited to or happens as a fluke. And I wonder, like, if you guys could tell me more about what it is like to like build your life around it a little bit, like look forward to seeing a game or whatever, because I'm fascinated. I seem to have been born without the bone in your head that makes you want to go to a big thing.
There's an aspect to this that I asked about earlier, Goose, which was like, what team are you a fan of and at what level? Because what I was mainly trying to figure out is what kind of fan you are. Because the teams that a fan identifies themselves with can tell you a lot about their personality, what they're willing to endure or not endure. And by that, I mean, like, if you're a fan of a team that's gone many, many years without winning anything, you can be seen as a sort of loyal, long-suffering fan in a way that a fan of a great team or a team that's been great recently can often be seen as kind of a safe front-running fan. There's all sorts of judgments that can be made there. And I want to draw an equivalency to something that I think is important here, because I don't think anymore you can talk about sports without talking about gambling.
Yeah, sadly.
And even though I am a sometimes degenerate gambler, definitely enthusiastic gambler, I am not enjoying and disapproving of how pervasive gambling has become in sports. No matter how you watch it on TV or encounter it in a stadium itself, you can bet on games at stadiums now. I don't love that, but winding it back up to my initial point, I think there is a theory that when you start gambling and you lose initially, its hold over you is greater than if you win.
Huh.
And I can tell you, some of the moments of my life where I have felt the most agony have been the moments where my favorite team has lost on the biggest stage. And that feeling is so similar to a crushing gambling loss, where there was no real relationship between the two, but that feeling in my head and my heart, I definitely feel the similarity there, and it's galvanized my feelings for my own team. It's almost as if the losses are more powerful than the wins, and I don't think that's a unique or strange sensibility to have as a sports fan.
No, not at all. I feel fortunate to say that I feel like my relationship with it is a little bit more wholesome at this stage, where in terms of like watching regular games, yeah, I mostly just watched the Chiefs all last season, and I ended up getting into the Ravens a lot too.
Well, that was a pretty fun championship game for you then.
Sure was. There's a hell of a game, honestly. I just love seeing people, especially as I get older, I just love seeing people do anything at an extremely high level.
Yeah.
And those two teams going at each other in a championship game was more exciting than the Super Bowl, honestly.
Yeah.
In a world without appointment television, and in my world without a real job, there's so many of the kind of rhythms of life are gone. And I'm just constantly floating in space in a way that is very unmooring. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting like a thumbs down emoji appearing next to my screen. Does that mean one of you doesn't like what I'm saying? Are you being like, change topic, move on?
That's happening on your computer, Goose. You can turn it off if you want.
I'll try to ignore it. So that having a weekly football game has restored some seasonality to my life and some rhythm to the week and something to look forward to on the scale of a week, right? That was just a ton of fun. And because Lauren and I shared it together, that also made it, really fun. And although we were interested for very different reasons, the other half of my football fandom has been obsessively watching highlight reels on YouTube, which is kind of the polar opposite. It's like a new 21st century phenomenon where you can just endlessly watch the best and most incredible things that have ever happened.
I mean, that used to be like a VHS tape thing. Like you could do that in the 90s. You just had to get a tape from like a Dick's Sporting Goods or something.
Yes, order it via an 800 number with which you would also get your free football phone, right?
Yeah.
I have had so much fun watching certain highlight reels. So I'll mention a couple by name. There was a great defensive lineman, a nose tackle for the New England Patriots named Vince Wilfork. Familiar with Wilfork? Anybody? Gigantic human. Like he sort of stuck out because even though linemen, that is to say the players who line up right on the line of scrimmage and are generally the biggest, strongest guys because it's their job to smash into the other big, strong guys and protect the weaker guys behind them who are actually going to handle the ball. The linemen are always huge, but Wilfork had this just like really big belly that sort of stuck out on the screen, and people would sometimes think that was a little bit silly until he performed outrageous feats of athleticism on nearly every play, and was also apparently just an incredibly intelligent player, just a guy who just had it all in his head. And Bill Belichick has the coach of at the time of the Patriots. He would have several team captains. He'd have captains from different player groups, and he said that Wilfork was the captain of the captains always. Mm-hmm. And I love watching this guy. And one of the fun things about what the NFL has done in recent years, I mean, NFL's in-house media people are so goddamn good. And one of the things that they've done for several years now is what they call the mic'd up series, where they put a body mic onto players and will put together highlight reels of what they're talking about on the field. And the on-field banter is often just so adorable. These men are just big teddy bears. And sometimes they get angry and get into little scuffles, but like they mostly just love each other and admire each other and have surprisingly intelligent, strategic and tactical things to say on the sideline, in addition to just telling awesome jokes and patting each other on the back all the time. Like that's another thing I love about American football, is that because the player positions are so numerous and specialized, there's maybe 50 guys on a football team, right? And a lot of them have incredibly tiny jobs where they just come on to do one little, to be the long snapper for 5 seconds, and that's the dude's whole job, right? Mm-hmm. The result seems to be much more esprit de corps than you see in a basketball team, for example, that is very often just, 5 individuals who are competing with each other as much as they're competing with the other team. NFL, everyone is so reliant on each other to execute these incredibly elaborate choreographed plays that it just seems to encourage this spirit of brotherhood that I find sincerely moving especially among gigantic men.
Yeah, there's so much game within the game at the line of scrimmage, Goose. To create an effective offensive play that moves the ball forward requires something being won at so many positions. And if any one of those things is lost, then the play is blown and it doesn't quite work, and you don't advance the ball at all and occasionally lose the ball completely. It's what makes, I think, the game so enjoyable to a casual person, but also it grows in how entertaining it can be the longer you watch it, because you start to get into the nuances of why things happen the way they do and why specific matchups that aren't just obvious. It's not just a great quarterback against a supposedly great defense. It's why an offensive lineman needs to win every time for this quarterback to be successful, or why this safety running toward the other end of the field on this long pass play is important for breaking up what would be a touchdown. It's not just things happening, it's the reasons they happen that make the game so interesting and nuanced the longer you watch it.
Yeah, well said. It's like a book or a song that is really absorbing upon first blush, but can also withstand much, much deeper reading. Mm-hmm. Because if you can just watch it and look at individual extraordinary athletic effort, right? It's easy for anyone to see, a Randy Moss, run down the field and then jump 3 heads higher than all of the other incredibly good fast jumping men on that field and catch a ball with one hand and then come down somehow with his feet still, within bounds or something like that. Like you can watch that and absorb it and take it in on a superficial level, and it's awesome. But then, as you say, Adam, as you get more advanced in your reading of the game, you can see all of the different dudes who had to do certain things to get Randy out there and give him space in order to do what he needed to do. Or you can see when the plan completely fails, right? When the generalship completely flops. Yeah. And guys have to improvise and occasionally succeed spectacularly that way. And that is also thrilling in a completely different way.
Yeah, truly.
Goose, are you getting to games at all? I mean, as far as I know, Knoxville doesn't have a team in the league. But, you have a college there. So is there any live enjoyment of this in your life?
You guys know I don't like people. What the hell?
That's probably like the biggest thing that you could go to and not get recognized, right?
I don't know. I tend to... UT is a good market for me for some reason. Every time I'm on campus, I do tend to get recognized quite a lot.
Got to get a beagle puss.
That's right. Lauren has gotten into hockey big time lately because she's a romance writer, and there's a whole thing of romance writing and reading women being horny for hockey players.
And men.
Indeed, yes, indeed, true. But she's written, a horny hockey romance and is working on another, and available at fine bookstores near you. Lauren Morrill.
Is the horny book section organized by sport or by author's last name?
If you go to like a specialty romance bookstore, they will absolutely have like a horny hockey section. That's 100% a thing. And so we've gone to like Nashville Predators games, which is real NHL hockey over in Nashville. We've gone to Knoxville Ice Bears games, which is like the lowest level of minor league hockey. And I have found it to be extremely trying, these experiences, really upsetting, honestly. One, because whereas I think the bloodlust in football is usually reasonably healthy, the bloodlust in hockey is horrifying because they have actual fights, right? Actual physical out of play combat plays a major role in hockey. For some reason, fighting is allowed up to a point in hockey, which is totally bizarre and a conversation for another day.
Yeah, as long as it's like within the confines of the Marquess of Queensberry's rules surrounding fist fighting in hockey, right?
Like, you have to hold your arms in like the pugilistic stance? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that it's gentlemanly.
No, it's like horrifying. I mean, you see it in person. It's horrifying. It shouldn't be allowed. Everyone involved should be prosecuted. And the way the crowd brays for it is disgusting. Like really sincerely upsetting to me. And I understand my reaction is exacerbated by the fact that whatever my particular neurodiversity is, like I have a lot of trouble with loud places and lots of stimulus all at once.
Is it at all comforting that after they beat the snot out of each other on the ice, they're going back to the locker room to do some other kinds of physical interaction?
You're just trying to write the book for Lauren now, aren't you? You two should talk. Apparently you've got some fantasies to share, and I applaud you.
I played a lot of team sports as a kid, and ice hockey was one of my sports. So I've given some thought to this.
Because I think of Ben Harrison, the crew kid. Hockey is like socially the polar opposite of crew, right?
Yeah. I mean, so my team sports journey was soccer and little league and then ice hockey. And then I hit puberty like 2 or 3 years later than most of my peers that were playing ice hockey. So there was like a very like bright line where it started to be like incredibly uncool to be on the ice with these kids that had like stubble and could like actually, they had like muscle tone that I just couldn't produce. So
hold up, time out. I need to get a picture of this. So did Ben Harrison have his growth spurt before puberty?
I was big. Yeah. I mean, I grew a lot my whole life. I grew 3/4 of an inch the year I turned 25. So
Jesus.
Yeah. I was probably getting close to 6 feet, but I was gangly, like I was a total rag doll in the ice. So
at what point do your skull plates finally fuse together?
I don't know. I'll let you know when it happens.
Unfused is a term I often think of to describe Ben Harrison.
So crew is like the most non-contact sport you can possibly imagine. And that was kind of a soft landing for me when I got out of ice hockey. But I did team sports my entire, adolescence and childhood. I didn't do anything in college, obviously, but yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised that I'm the actual sporto of the three of us.
I know.
In that way.
So how did you negotiate that socially? Was there not as strict of a jocks versus nerds divide in your social milieu than there was in mine, in like a college town where there was very much an alternative culture that defined itself in opposition to anything that had anything to do with the university and its sports teams?
Yeah, there was no gown versus town energy anywhere I lived. I think part of it was that I never went to a school that had a football program. I went to small private schools until I went to a huge private school for college. But even my huge private school that I went to for college didn't have a football team. And so like, I kind of think that a big part of that jocks versus nerd thing is specific to football and just didn't interact with my life because I was never really eligible to be considered for or not for the football team. Like, I didn't ever walk down a hallway and have someone say like, that kid's like getting pretty tall and maybe we should like, you know, ask him to go out for the football team or something. You know, I got asked about basketball all the time, and I'm sure that there's jobs for a tall skinny on a football team. I wouldn't have any expertise in what those are, but like I was always like a little bit alienated by the like jocks versus nerds energy in all pop culture. Like every movie you watched about high school or whatever kind of had that element to it. And I was like, I just don't like there's definitely like cliques and social circles that are like insular and exclusive in ways that I can understand what's going on here, but I never thought of any of the schools that I went to that way. And that may be totally subjective to me. Maybe other kids that were going to those schools did think of them in that way, but I always assumed it was the no football effect.
Did you ever watch Friday Night Lights, the TV show, Ben?
I didn't, and I've never seen the movie either.
My wife does not like football at all. Anti-football, you could even say. She loved that show.
Wow.
That might be a good way in for the non-footballer in your life to maybe enjoy the game on some level.
Well, while we're on that topic, you and my wife worked up a kind of a buck slip of responses that someone can use in a context where they are talking to somebody that knows a lot about football and they don't know anything about football, but they need to like glide through that conversation gracefully. And it's pretty simple, right? It's 3 sentences that you have to remember. Do you remember what those are, Adam?
So your wife works with football fans.
Yes.
She expressed a situation where often she feels othered in the sense that, like, of course she's invited to the conversation, but as someone who does not consume football, how do you even participate in a conversation like that? When the big game has happened and the folks at work are talking about the big game afterward, what do you even say? How do you become a part of this group? So this was the advice that I gave to your wife. You only really need 3 things to say in moments like these. 1, and Ben, hop in here in case I miss one or I get one wrong. Okay. First of all, one of the easiest things that you can say that works for both wins and losses. I mean, those refs, though. That's a good one.
Fucking refs. That's, yeah.
The fucking refs. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I think another one was even more vague, which was, I know, I can't believe it. Was that one of them, Ben?
I think the second one was Brady would have torn that defense apart.
Oh, yeah, because everyone knows who Tom Brady is.
But it's not specific which defense you're even talking about. You don't need to know which teams played to just say Brady would have torn that defense apart.
Brady being the greatest celebrity football player of all at this point. Great person to reference at a time like that. Mm-hmm. And the other one is for people who really have the sort of confidence to pull it off. And I know your wife is one of these people, because as soon as she drops a line like this in mixed company, I bet time just stops in the room, because she does not seem like the sort of person who would say, I lost so much money on that game.
It's like a space alien trying to pretend it's not wearing a rubber mask, right?
Yeah. And from what I gather, your wife has used these techniques to some effect.
I think it's gone pretty well.
That's great.
And nobody's called her on it. Nobody said, I see right through your ruse.
Well, the thing about the last one is it really kills the follow-up question, because it is deeply uncomfortable for someone to ask another person how much money they lost. That's not usually done.
Yeah. I guess like the one potential pitfall I can see in that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong here, but if she didn't know that one of the teams was fabulous and the other team sucked ass, wouldn't it be kind of embarrassing in that context to say, ooh, lost a lot of money on that one?
Not where a point spread is involved. You can
Okay.
still lose
yeah.
on betting a favorite if they don't win by enough points.
Oh, yeah. You can chop it up into a million different derivatives and bet on the bet on the bet, right? At this point.
Yeah.
How healthy. All right. Well, gentlemen, gridiron football, a game not played on a grid or really with the feet. Is it wholesome?
I'll come in first. I think I'll have the bummer answer. I'm going to take some of the wholesome or none split that we use on this program. I'm just going to take some.
Belovedly so, yes.
I have enjoyed it tremendously when I've gone. I think the in-person experience is the version of football that works best for me. But I do not find myself, browsing ticket websites and like putting things on my calendar to think about when I'm going to go to my next game. And I think that is indicative of my level of enthusiasm about it. It's like, it is a really fun thing for me to do with friends. And I'm always happy to receive the invite and tag along for something like that. But yeah, I wish you both the best with your fandom of football, but it's not, I don't know. Like I got a book I want to write. When am I going to fit that in if I start getting into football and having that be
That is really the barrier for you, Ben.
Got all these colored pencils and an art book that I haven't even cracked open, and you're telling me I need to get into another.
You haven't even gotten to your pastels phase.
You can sit and color your pictures, Ben, while the football game is on. I don't think anyone's stopping you.
But I'm saying I don't like watching it on TV. I like being there in person.
Yeah.
Well, you know how you're really popular at an American football game is if you have an easel off to the side and you paint while you're watching the football game. People are going to love that.
Get the Nerds versus Jocks war back to a hot war right away.
Well, especially if you block the aisle.
How about you, Pranica?
I think it is the perfect combination of both wholesome and the worst thing in American sports. It is my favorite sport. It is my favorite thing to watch on TV. It is a thing I look forward to every September to January. It's my favorite time of year. Favorite thing to enjoy. But there's a lot of it that makes it hard to be a fan of. I mean, Goose, I thought the Penn State football program should have been the victim of the nuclear option. I think that football program should have been wiped off the face of the earth, never to play again after that. I am a fan of the Green Bay Packers with two of the worst type of people to play quarterback for them for the past 30 years in Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And yet I still am a fan. It's difficult to describe how I can hold those two feelings in my mind and my heart at the same time. I'm not even going to try. All I can tell you is that, I definitely feel the negative parts of it in a way that suck, but also it is the highest rated, most consumed sport in this country. It's the most popular thing to watch on TV every week in prime time consecutively.
For a reason, right?
It is a spectacle. And a spectacle at its best is something that's almost impossible to turn away from. I am not strong enough to turn away from professional football. I enjoy it too much, even for all of its flaws. It is both wholesome and the worst.
Much like ourselves and this program, produced by the laudable Wendy Pretty, and we thank her for her efforts. And I'll pivot into our beloved signature sign-off and say, I'm Adam Ragusia on behalf of Adam Pranica and Benjamin R. Harrison. If what we talked about today sounded wholesome to you, go share it with your buddies. Hope you enjoyed that because it's the last one you're getting for free. Wholesome is the new subscriber-only weekly podcast from myself, Benjamin Harrison, and Adam Pranica. Yes, there's two Adams in the show. It's an Adam, Ben, and Adam show. Actually, it's a Adam, Ben, and Adam show. We agreed on that ordering. But anywho, why are we doing a subscriber-only show? Well, we just want to have a place where we can talk about our things with our people and everybody else can go somewhere else. We don't want to make a show where we have to wave our bits out the window to gain a mass audience. And we also don't want to have any ads. So that's what we're going to try over on this new Wholesome program. Hope you'll join us there. Link is in the description, and I'll see you on the gridiron. I'm not going to throw the football again.